I watched my father place a $10,000 Cartier watch on Madison's wrist at their 30th anniversary dinner. The family erupted in applause as Robert raised his champagne glass, declaring Madison the greatest gift our marriage ever produced. I forced a smile while the photographer positioned everyone for the perfect family portrait, everyone except me. I stood forgotten behind the camera operator, invisible in my own family's milestone moment, clutching the envelope containing news that would change everything. The crystal chandelier cast shadows across the private dining room at Bellecour Manor, but nothing could dim the spotlight that perpetually followed my younger sister. Madison's blonde hair caught every flicker of light as she examined her new Cartier watch, turning her wrist this way and that while our parents beamed with pride. 25 years old and already so accomplished, Carol, my mother, gushed to the gathered family friends. Madison just secured 3 new clients for her marketing firm this month. I bit my tongue, remembering how those same clients were actually referrals I had quietly arranged through my business connections. Madison had no idea I was behind her recent success streak, and our parents certainly didn't know. "Diana, sweetie, could you move back a little?" The photographer gestured vaguely in my direction. "We want to capture the happy family." Happy family. I stepped backward until I was pressed against the burgundy wallpaper, watching my sister pose with our parents like they were starring in a luxury magazine spread. At 28, I had grown accustomed to being the afterthought, but tonight felt different. Tonight felt final. "Robert," my father straightened his silk tie and cleared his throat. "Before we continue with dinner, I have another surprise for my darling Madison." Another surprise. I watched him reach into his jacket pocket, producing a set of BMW keys that sparkled under the restaurant lighting. "A new car to match your beautiful new watch," he announced, dangling the keys just out of Madison's reach. "Cherry red, just like you wanted." Madison squealed and threw her arms around his neck, nearly knocking over her champagne glass. "Daddy, you're incredible! How did you know I was looking at BMWs?" Because she had shown me the brochures 3 weeks ago, asking my opinion on lease terms. Because I had casually mentioned to Robert that Madison needed reliable transportation for her client meetings. Because I was always the invisible architect behind Madison's seemingly charmed life. "And that's not all," Carol chimed in, reaching for her purse. "Your father and I discussed it, and we've decided to pay for your graduate school, full tuition at Northwestern." The envelope in my hand suddenly felt heavier. Inside were documents detailing my company's acquisition by a major tech conglomerate, a $32 million deal that I had spent 3 years negotiating. I had planned to share this news with my family tonight to finally have something worthy of their attention. "Madison has always been so academically gifted," Robert told the table of guests. "Unlike some people, she actually applies herself to meaningful pursuits." His eyes flicked toward me briefly, dismissively, before returning to Madison's radiant smile. Sarah, my parents' longtime friend, leaned forward with interest. "Diana, how's your computer business going? I remember you mentioned something about software development last Christmas." Finally, an opening. I stepped forward, clutching my envelope. "Actually, that's what I wanted to tell everyone tonight. My company just—" "Oh, Diana's always working on some little project or another," Carol interrupted with a wave of her manicured hand. "Madison, tell everyone about your promotion at the marketing agency." Madison launched into a detailed account of her recent accomplishments, most of which I recognized as embellished versions of small victories. Her 3 new clients became major corporate accounts. Her participation in a team presentation became leading a multi-million-dollar campaign. Her attendance at a networking event became keynote speaking at an industry conference. Our parents hung on every word while I faded back into the shadows. Tyler, Madison's boyfriend of 6 months, raised his phone to capture her animated storytelling. "This is going straight to Instagram," he announced. "My followers love seeing real success stories." I watched him type a caption that read, "Date night with my incredible girlfriend and her amazing family." Success runs in their genes, well, mostly. He paused, glanced at me, then added, "Even the weird sister showed up tonight." The words stung more than they should have. I had built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing, created jobs for 47 people, and revolutionized data analytics for small businesses. But in my family's eyes, I remained the weird sister who played with computers. "Diana inherited all the brains," Carol was saying to the table. "But Madison got all the charm. I suppose that's just how genetics work sometimes." All the brains, as if intelligence were some consolation prize for lacking everything that really mattered, as if my 3 engineering degrees, my successful business, and my innovation awards were just participation trophies in the game of life. I excused myself to the restroom, needing a moment to breathe. The marble bathroom was blessedly empty, giving me space to process the familiar ache of being overlooked. My phone buzzed with messages from James, my business partner, wondering where I was. The tech industry celebration he had organized was supposed to start in an hour. When I returned to the table, Madison was holding court with stories about her college sorority days. Robert's face glowed with paternal pride as she described winning homecoming queen. "I always knew Madison would be special," he told the gathered guests. "From the moment she was born, she just had this light about her, this natural magnetism that draws people in. I had been born 3 years earlier, but apparently without any notable light or magnetism, just brains which seemed to count for very little in the family hierarchy." The conversation drifted to Madison's future plans, her wedding dreams, her career aspirations. I listened to my parents' promised support for every endeavor, while my own achievements remained invisible in the corner. As dessert was served, I overheard Robert speaking quietly to his business partner near the bar. "I'm grateful Madison turned out normal," he was saying. "For a while there, I worried about Diana. All that time locked away with computers, never dating seriously, refusing to settle down. It's not natural for a woman her age." "At least you have one daughter who knows how to live in the real world," came the response. "Not natural. Not living in the real world." I stared down at my envelope containing proof that I had built something extraordinary in the very real world of technology and business. But apparently creating innovative software solutions and securing multi-million-dollar acquisitions didn't qualify as natural or real. The photographer finished capturing individual shots of Madison, with her new gifts, each pose more elaborate than the last. She held the Cartier watch toward the camera keys, dangling from her other hand, smile perfect and practiced. "Now let's get some family shots," the photographer announced. I stood up expectantly, smoothing my dress and preparing to join the group. "Actually," Carol said, consulting her phone, "Madison, why don't we just do some portraits of you and Daddy? The lighting is perfect right now, and you look absolutely stunning." I remained standing frozen mid-motion as my family arranged themselves for photos that would commemorate this milestone anniversary. Photos that would hang in our family home, marking this important moment in their lives. Photos that would tell the story of their success, their pride, their greatest achievements. Photos that would not include me. Madison caught my eye as the photographer adjusted his settings. For just a moment, her expression flickered with something that might have been guilt. But then Robert called her name and she turned back to the camera with her practiced smile firmly in place. I stood there, invisible and unnecessary, clutching evidence of my greatest professional triumph, while my family celebrated my sister's new jewelry. That was when I realized I had been approaching this all wrong. I had been waiting for their approval, hoping for their recognition, believing that someday my achievements would finally be enough to earn my place in their spotlight. But I didn't need their spotlight. I had created my own. The main course arrived as Madison continued basking in the glow of her parents' adoration. Lobster thermidor for the golden child while I picked at my salmon and watched the performance unfold. The 12 guests around our table had become Madison's personal audience, each one charmed by her animated recounting of recent adventures. The marketing campaign I designed for Peterson Industries increased their quarterly revenue by 15%, she announced, twirling her new watch around her wrist. Sometimes I surprise myself with how creative I can be. I nearly choked on my wine. Peterson Industries was one of my software clients, and their revenue increase came directly from implementing my data analytics platform. Madison had simply created a few social media posts for them, but somehow that translated to full credit for their success. Madison has always been gifted with people skills, Robert boasted to his golf partner. She could sell ice to an Eskimo, as they say. Unlike some of us, Carol added with a pointed glance in my direction, Diana's always been more comfortable with machines than humans. I set down my fork carefully, feeling the familiar burn of dismissal. Actually, I've been meaning to share some exciting news about my company. Madison's water glass tipped over, suddenly sending liquid cascading across the white tablecloth toward my lap. I jumped up as ice cubes scattered across the floor, drawing every eye in the room. "Oh my goodness, Diana, I'm so clumsy!" Madison exclaimed, dabbing at the spreading puddle with her napkin. "Your dress is soaked." The burgundy fabric clung to my legs, dark with moisture. While I stood dripping, Madison seamlessly redirected attention back to herself. "I guess I was just too excited about graduate school to pay attention to my coordination," she laughed, earning chuckles from the table. "Daddy, tell everyone about the program at Northwestern." As Robert launched into details about Madison's educational future, I realized the spill had been perfectly timed to interrupt my attempt at sharing news. Perfectly positioned to ensure I would leave the table looking disheveled while Madison remained poised and perfect. The restaurant staff rushed over with towels, making a production of cleaning up Madison's accident. I stood there damp and displaced while my sister reclaimed her throne at the center of attention. "Diana, sweetheart," Carol said without looking up from her conversation, "perhaps you should visit the ladies' room and clean yourself up properly. You look a bit rumpled." Rumpled. I glanced at my reflection in the darkened window and saw exactly what my mother saw, a woman whose careful preparation for this evening had been undone by a strategic water spill. My hair had wilted slightly from the humidity, my makeup needed touching up, and my dress clung unfavorably to my figure. Meanwhile, Madison glowed like a magazine cover, every blonde curl perfectly in place, her emerald cocktail dress unmarked by any accidents. "You know," Carol continued, addressing the table at large, "I keep telling Diana she should take some style lessons from Madison. Learn how to present herself properly in social situations." Tyler pointed his phone camera at Madison again, capturing her graceful recovery from the spill incident. "This is why I love this family," he announced to his social media followers. "Even when there's drama, Madison handles everything with such class." Drama, as if my presence alone created disruption in their perfect family dynamic. I walked slowly to the bathroom, each step squishing slightly in my wet shoes. Behind me, I heard Robert's voice rising with paternal pride. "We've always known Madison was destined for greatness. She has that special quality that separates leaders from followers." Leaders from followers. I paused outside the bathroom door, thinking about the 47 employees who looked to me for leadership every day, the clients who trusted my strategic vision, the industry peers who sought my expertise on technological innovation. But according to my father, I was apparently just a follower. The bathroom was empty except for the attendant who offered me towels and sympathy. As I patted my dress dry, I caught fragments of conversation drifting from the dining room. "Diana's always been the difficult one," Carol's voice carried clearly through the thin walls. "So serious, so intense. Never learned how to simply enjoy life like Madison does." "I worry about her," Robert added. 28 years old and still single, buried in that computer business. It's not healthy for a woman to be so career-focused." "Madison understands balance," came another voice I recognized as Sarah's. Career, relationships, family obligations. She makes it all look effortless. Effortless. Because Madison didn't actually handle the difficult parts. She floated through life while others, namely me, handled the logistics, the planning, the actual work that made her success possible. When I returned to the table, Madison was modeling her Cartier watch for Sarah's inspection. The diamonds caught the light as she moved her wrist, creating tiny rainbows across the white tablecloth. "It's absolutely stunning!" Sarah marveled. "You must feel so loved and appreciated." "I really do," Madison beamed. "My parents have always been incredibly supportive of my dreams and ambitions." My phone buzzed insistently in my purse. James was texting updates from the restaurant across town where my business celebration was supposed to begin. Tech journalists were arriving. Industry leaders wanted to congratulate me on the acquisition. The mayor's office had sent a representative. But I sat there damp and dismissed, listening to my sister accept praise for accomplishments that weren't entirely her own. "Madison," Robert announced, raising his champagne glass again. "I have one more surprise for this evening." One more surprise. I felt my stomach sink as he reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "Your grandmother's engagement ring," he said, opening the box to reveal the vintage sapphire setting that had belonged to our father's mother. "I think it's time this beautiful heirloom found its way to the right granddaughter." The right granddaughter. I stared at the ring that I had admired since childhood, the one Robert had specifically promised to me when I turned 16. "Someday this will be yours, Diana," he had said then. Grandmother always said it should go to the granddaughter who valued family history. But now Madison was slipping it onto her finger, tears of joy sparkling in her eyes. "Daddy, I can't believe you're trusting me with something so precious," she whispered. "You've earned it, sweetheart. You've shown such maturity, such appreciation for family traditions." I opened my mouth to protest, to remind Robert of his promise, but the words died in my throat. What was the point? In this family's revised history, I had apparently never been promised anything. Tyler immediately began photographing Madison's new acquisition, zooming in on the way the sapphire complemented her engagement ring finger. "This is going to get so many likes," he murmured, already crafting captions about vintage elegance and family treasures. Sarah looked between Madison and me, her expression troubled. "I remember when your grandmother wore that ring," she said carefully. "She was always so proud of it. Said it should go to the granddaughter who would appreciate its significance." "Madison clearly understands its value," Carol said firmly, ending any potential discussion. The significance I appreciated was being systematically erased from family memory. The promises made to me were being retroactively broken without acknowledgement. The heirlooms I had expected to inherit were being redistributed to the daughter who brought more joy to family gatherings. As dinner concluded, the photographer gathered us for final group shots. Once again, I found myself positioned at the edge of frames partially hidden behind other guests, included only as an afterthought in the composition. "Perfect," the photographer declared after capturing dozens of images centered around Madison's radiant smile. I pulled out my phone and saw 17 missed calls from James along with text messages from business contacts, journalists, and industry colleagues. The celebration of my acquisition was in full swing without me, while I sat invisible at my own family's anniversary dinner. The envelope in my purse contained documents that would change my life forever, news that would finally prove my worth in concrete, undeniable terms. But looking around this table, I realized that no amount of professional success would ever be enough to shift my family's fundamental dynamic. I would always be the difficult daughter, the one who chose machines over people, the one who couldn't simply enjoy life the way Madison did. I would always be the afterthought in family photos, the rumpled sister who created drama just by existing. Unless I stopped waiting for their validation and claimed the recognition I had earned elsewhere. I stood up slowly, my damp dress finally starting to dry, and made a decision that would change everything. "I need to leave early tonight," I announced to the table. I have somewhere else I need to be. Robert looked up from admiring Madison's ring. Already, we haven't even had the anniversary toast yet. I'm sure you'll manage just fine without me, I said, gathering my purse and the envelope that contained my real future. Diana, Carol called after me as I headed for the door. You're being terribly rude to our guests. I turned back one final time, looking at my family arranged around their table like a magazine advertisement for success and happiness. Madison wore my grandmother's ring, my father's pride, my mother's approval, and the spotlight that had never quite managed to include me. Give my regards to everyone, I said quietly. I hope the rest of the evening is everything you dreamed it would be. And then I walked out of Bellecourt Manor, leaving behind the family that had never really seen me, and drove toward the people who actually valued what I had built. The valet brought my car around as I stood under the manor's elegant awning, breathing the cool evening air and trying to process what had just happened inside. Through the tall windows, I could see my family continuing their celebration without missing a beat. Madison was showing off her grandmother's ring to the remaining guests while Robert and Carol beamed with satisfaction. My grandmother's ring, the one she had specifically mentioned in her will, should go to the granddaughter who honors family traditions and builds something lasting. Grandmother had been an entrepreneur herself, starting a successful catering business in the 1950s when few women ran their own companies. She would have understood my path, my choices, my dedication to building something meaningful. But apparently honoring family traditions now meant being charming at dinner parties rather than carrying forward her legacy of female entrepreneurship. I slid into my car and sat for a moment staring at the envelope on my passenger seat. $32 million. 3 years of 18-hour days, failed prototypes, rejected investor meetings, and sleepless nights debugging code. 3 years of building something revolutionary while my family dismissed it as playing with computers. My phone rang. James. Diana, where are you? The mayor just arrived and Channel 7 wants to do a live interview about the acquisition. This is huge. I'm on my way, I said, starting the engine. Sorry I'm late. Family dinner ran longer than expected. How did they react to the news? They must be incredibly proud. I pulled out of the manor's circular driveway, watching my family's celebration fade in my rearview mirror. I didn't tell them. Silence on the other end of the line. Diana, this is the biggest tech acquisition in the state this year. You're about to be on the front page of every business journal in the country. How could you not tell your family? How could I explain that my family was too busy celebrating Madison's new watch to care about my company's acquisition? How could I describe sitting invisible at their anniversary dinner while they redistributed my inheritance to the daughter who brought them more social satisfaction? It's complicated, I said, merging onto the highway toward downtown. I'll explain later. Well, you better get here soon. The whole tech community is buzzing about this deal. Everyone wants to meet the woman who revolutionized small business analytics. The woman who revolutionized small business analytics, not the weird sister who played with computers, not the difficult daughter who chose machines over people, the woman who had actually built something that mattered. 20 minutes later, I pulled up to Meridian, the upscale restaurant where my business celebration was in full swing. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see familiar faces from the tech industry, local business leaders and journalists with cameras and recording equipment. This was my crowd. These were people who understood innovation, who respected achievement, who valued the kind of work I had spent 3 years perfecting. I checked my appearance in the car mirror, fixing my hair and touching up my lipstick. My dress had dried completely during the drive, and I looked professional again, confident, ready to claim the recognition I had earned. James met me at the restaurant entrance, his face lighting up with relief and excitement. There she is, the woman of the hour. He wrapped me in a hug that felt warm and genuine, so different from the polite air kisses I had received from my family earlier. Diana, you look amazing. Ready to celebrate? I looked through the windows at the crowd of people waiting to congratulate me, to hear the story of my success, to understand the innovation that had attracted such a significant acquisition offer. "More than ready," I said. As we walked into Meridian Angela, the restaurant manager approached with a huge smile and a champagne flute. "Ms. Diana, congratulations on your incredible achievement. The entire staff has been so excited to host your celebration tonight." Angela had been following my company's progress for months through local business news. She understood exactly what this acquisition meant, what it represented in terms of innovation and economic impact for our city. "Thank you, Angela. This means the world to me." "Your table is ready, and we've prepared something special for tonight's announcement." She led us through the restaurant past tables of tech entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, and innovation leaders who stood and applauded as I walked by. These people knew my work, respected my vision, and understood the significance of what I had accomplished. James guided me to a reserved section where the core team from my company was waiting. Sarah Chen, my Chief Technology Officer, Marcus Rodriguez, our Head of Product Development, Amy Patel, who ran our Client Relations Department, people who had worked alongside me through late nights and early mornings, who had believed in our vision when investors turned us down, who had celebrated small victories and learned from failures. "To Diana," James announced, raising his champagne glass as the room quieted. 3 years ago, she had a crazy idea about revolutionizing how small businesses understand their data. Tonight, that crazy idea just became a $32 million reality. The restaurant erupted in applause and cheers. Flash bulbs went off as journalists captured the moment. Industry leaders came forward to shake my hand and offer congratulations. This was what recognition looked like. This was what it felt like to be seen, appreciated, valued for the work you had actually done rather than the charm you displayed at dinner parties. Marcus from Tech Weekly approached with his camera crew. "Diana, could we get a few words about tonight's celebration? Our audience is fascinated by your journey from startup founder to acquisition success." I looked into the camera, thinking about my family across town, who were probably just finishing their dessert course, completely unaware that their weird sister was making headlines. 3 years ago, I identified a gap in the market for accessible data analytics tools. I began. Small businesses needed sophisticated insights but couldn't afford enterprise-level solutions. We built a platform that democratized business intelligence, and tonight we're celebrating the validation of that vision. "What's next for you personally? This acquisition gives you incredible freedom to pursue new ventures." What's next? I thought about my grandmother's ring on Madison's finger, about my parents' pride directed exclusively toward my sister's superficial accomplishments, about the family that had never quite made room for who I really was. "I'm excited to explore new opportunities," I said. "Sometimes you have to step away from familiar environments to discover what you're truly capable of achieving." After the interview, James pulled me aside to a quieter corner of the restaurant. "Diana, I need to tell you something. I've been waiting for the right moment, and after tonight's success, I think that moment is now." He looked nervous, vulnerable, in a way I had rarely seen during our professional partnership. "I've been in love with you for 2 years, he said quietly. "I didn't want to complicate our business relationship or put pressure on you during such an intense period, but watching you tonight, seeing you finally get the recognition you deserve, I realized I don't want to wait any longer to tell you how I feel." James, my brilliant, supportive business partner who had believed in my vision from the beginning, who had worked 18-hour days alongside me without complaint, who had celebrated every small victory and helped navigate every setback, who had seen my worth when my own family couldn't. "James," I started, but my phone began ringing insistently. Carol, my mother, was calling for the first time all evening. "I should probably take this," I told James apologetically. "Diana, where did you go? You left so abruptly, and now people are asking questions." "What kind of questions?" Sarah started showing people some article on her phone about a tech acquisition. Something about a company with your name attached to it. Is this some kind of publicity stunt? A publicity stunt. Even when faced with evidence of my success, my mother's first instinct was to assume it was somehow artificial or exaggerated. It's not a stunt, Carol. It's my company. The acquisition I tried to tell you about during dinner. Silence on the other end of the line. Your company was acquired for how much money? $32 million. The silence stretched longer. Diana, why didn't you tell us this during dinner? This is enormous news. I tried to tell you multiple times. You kept changing the subject back to Madison's watch and her graduate school plans. Well, you should have been more insistent. This is the kind of achievement that deserves proper celebration. Proper celebration, like the celebration that was happening around me right now, with people who had actually listened when I tried to share my news. I am celebrating, I said, looking around Meridian at the crowd of industry colleagues and friends who had shown up to honor my achievement. Just not where you expected. Diana, you need to come back immediately. We have to toast this properly with the family. Everyone's asking about you now. Everyone's asking about you now. Not because they had suddenly developed interest in my life or work, but because my success had become impossible to ignore. Because other people were talking about it, which made it socially relevant to my parents for the first time. I'm exactly where I need to be, I told Carol and hung up. James was watching my face carefully. Everything okay? My family just found out about the acquisition. They want me to come back and celebrate properly. After ignoring you all evening, after spending 3 hours celebrating Madison's new watch while dismissing my attempts to share this news, James shook his head with frustration. Diana, you deserve so much better than that. You deserve people who see your incredible mind, your innovation, your dedication. You deserve to be celebrated every day, not just when your success becomes impossible to ignore. Looking into his eyes, I realized he was right. I did deserve better. I deserved recognition from people who understood my work support, from people who believed in my vision and love, from someone who saw my worth even when it wasn't validated by external achievements. James, I said, reaching for his hand, I need to tell you something too. But before I could continue, Robert's number flashed on my phone screen. This time I let it ring. My phone continued buzzing with calls from my family as James and I stood together in Meridian's elegant ambiance. The celebration around us felt surreal after the dismissive atmosphere of my parents' anniversary dinner. Here, people approached me with genuine respect and curiosity about my work, asking detailed questions about the technology behind my data analytics platform. Diana, this acquisition is brilliant timing, said Jennifer Walsh, a venture capitalist I had worked with during my early funding rounds. The market for small business intelligence tools is exploding, and your platform was always years ahead of the competition. Years ahead of the competition. I smiled, remembering how my father had described my work as playing with computers just an hour earlier. Thank you, Jennifer. It's been a long road, but seeing small businesses transform their operations using our insights makes every late night worthwhile. What's your next move? With this kind of exit, you could fund any venture you wanted. Before I could answer, Angela approached our group with an excited expression. Ms. Diana, there's someone here who wants to meet you. Marcus Thompson from Channel 7 Business News. He says he's been trying to reach you about a live interview. Marcus Thompson. I recognized him from the local business segment that aired every weeknight. My company had never been significant enough to warrant his attention before, but apparently $32 million acquisitions opened doors that had previously remained closed. I'd be honored to speak with him, I said. Angela led me to a quieter section of the restaurant where Marcus was setting up with his camera operator. He was a distinguished man in his 50s with graying temples and the confident demeanor of someone accustomed to interviewing successful entrepreneurs. Diana, congratulations on tonight's announcement. Your acquisition is the biggest tech story our city has seen in years. Thank you, Marcus. I'm still processing it all myself. Tell me about the journey. 3 years ago, you started this company with what initial investment? I thought back to those early days working from my apartment, maxing out credit cards, surviving on savings while I developed the first version of our platform. I bootstrapped the initial development with $50,000 of personal savings. No outside investors for the first 18 months. And now you've built that into a $32 million exit. What drove you to focus on small business analytics specifically? I saw a massive gap in the market. Enterprise companies had access to sophisticated data analysis, but small businesses were making crucial decisions based on intuition and limited information. We democratized business intelligence. Your platform has been adopted by over 3,000 small businesses across 12 states. That kind of rapid growth suggests you identified a real need. 3,000 small businesses, 12 states, numbers that represented real impact, real value creation, real innovation, numbers that my family had never bothered to learn because they were too busy celebrating Madison's social media follower count. We focused obsessively on user experience, I explained. Most analytics platforms require technical expertise to operate. We built something that any business owner could use to understand their customer behavior, optimize their pricing, and predict seasonal trends. What's next for Diana Collins? This acquisition gives you significant resources to pursue new ventures. Diana Collins, not Robert's difficult daughter or Madison's weird sister. Diana Collins, the entrepreneur who had identified a market opportunity and executed a successful solution. I'm exploring several possibilities. There are still massive inefficiencies in how small businesses operate, particularly in supply chain management and customer retention. Any plans to stay in our local tech ecosystem? I glanced around Meridian at the faces of colleagues and collaborators who had supported my journey. This city had given me the foundation to build something meaningful. Absolutely. This community believed in my vision when it was just an idea. I want to help other entrepreneurs have similar opportunities. After the interview, Marcus shook my hand warmly. This segment will air tomorrow night, but we're also planning a feature story about local tech innovation. Would you be available for a longer conversation next week? Of course, I'd be happy to discuss the broader landscape of business technology. As Marcus packed up his equipment, James appeared at my side with 2 fresh champagne glasses. How did that feel? He asked. Like validation, I admitted. Like proof that the work we've been doing actually matters. Diana, it's always mattered. The difference is that now you're getting the recognition you've always deserved. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text message from Madison. Diana, where are you? People are freaking out about some tech thing with your name on it. Mom and Dad are acting weird and asking a million questions about your computer stuff. Call me back. Your computer stuff. Even my acquisition was being reduced to dismissive terminology by my sister. Everything okay? James noticed my expression. Madison wants to know where I am. Apparently my family is finally interested in my computer stuff. James set down his champagne glass and turned to face me directly. Diana, I meant what I said earlier about how I feel about you. James, you don't have to answer right now, but I want you to know that everything I admire about you, your intelligence, your persistence, your integrity, was visible long before tonight's acquisition. Your worth isn't measured by external validation. Before I could respond, Sarah Chen approached us with her laptop open. Diana, you need to see this. The acquisition announcement is going viral on social media. She turned her screen toward me, showing a Twitter thread that had started with our press release and exploded into hundreds of retweets and comments from the tech community. Local entrepreneur Diana Collins proves that innovation doesn't require Silicon Valley connections. This is how you build a sustainable tech business, solve real problems for underserved markets. Diana Collins just became one of the youngest women to achieve an 8-figure exit in our state's history. One of the youngest women to achieve an 8-figure exit. I stared at the comments from industry leaders, fellow entrepreneurs, and business journalists who were sharing and analyzing my story. Look at this one. Sarah pointed to a tweet from TechCrunch's regional correspondent. Diana Collins' acquisition is a masterclass in product-market fit. Her platform solved a genuine pain point that established companies had ignored. My phone started ringing again. This time it was Robert. Diana, you need to return to the restaurant immediately. This is a family milestone, and we need to discuss this acquisition properly. I'm in the middle of my own celebration, Robert. The one you showed no interest in when I tried to share this news during dinner? Diana, don't be childish. This is bigger than personal feelings. This is about family pride and supporting each other's achievements. Family pride, supporting each other's achievements. I looked around Meridian at the people who had actually supported my achievement through years of development, who had celebrated my progress through countless small victories, who had never once made me feel invisible or unworthy of attention. Where was the family pride when I was working 18-hour days to build this company? Where was the support when I was pitching to investors and getting rejected dozens of times? We didn't understand the scope of what you were doing. You never explained it properly. I tried to explain it tonight, multiple times. You kept interrupting me to talk about Madison's watch. Silence on Robert's end. Your sister's achievements don't diminish your own, Diana. We can celebrate both of you. Apparently not. Apparently there's only room for one daughter's success in your attention span. Diana, that's unfair. What's unfair is spending 28 years feeling invisible in my own family while you lavish attention on Madison's every minor accomplishment. What's unfair is giving her my grandmother's ring after promising it to me for 12 years. We thought Madison would appreciate the family tradition. Grandmother was an entrepreneur, Robert. She built a business when women weren't supposed to have careers. She would have wanted her ring to go to the granddaughter who followed her example, not the one who looks prettiest wearing it. I hung up and turned back to James, who had been listening with growing concern. Are you okay? I'm better than okay. For the first time in years, I'm exactly where I belong. Angela approached us again, this time with a bottle of their finest champagne and a beaming smile. Compliments of the house, she announced. The entire staff wanted to congratulate you on your incredible success. It's not often we get to host someone who's making national business news. National business news. I accepted the champagne, gratefully realizing that my story was reaching far beyond our local tech community. Angela, thank you. This celebration means more to me than you know. Women entrepreneurs like you inspire the rest of us. You've shown that innovation and persistence can create extraordinary opportunities. As Angela returned to managing the restaurant, I felt my phone buzz with another text from Madison. Seriously, Diana, what is happening? Tyler is saying you're trending on LinkedIn and people are calling you a tech mogul. Is this real? A tech mogul. I showed the message to James, who laughed out loud. From weird sister to tech mogul in about 2 hours. That might be a record. The difference is that these people, I gestured around Meridian, actually understand what I've built. They value innovation, not just surface-level charm. Diana, James said, reaching for my hand. I know tonight has been overwhelming, but I want you to know that I see you, not just the successful entrepreneur, but the brilliant woman who cares about solving real problems. The person who spent 3 years building something meaningful while never losing sight of why it mattered. Looking into his eyes, I realized that James represented everything I had been seeking from my family, but never received. Recognition, support, genuine appreciation for who I was, rather than who they wanted me to be. I see you too, James, and I want to explore whatever this could be between us. He smiled, and for the first time all evening, I felt completely at peace with my decision to leave my family's celebration for my own. My phone rang one more time. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. Diana Collins. This is Rebecca Martinez from Forbes magazine. We're working on a feature about women in tech, and your acquisition story caught our attention. Would you be available for an interview tomorrow? Forbes magazine. I looked around at my celebration at James beside me at the community of innovators who had gathered to honor my achievement. Yes, I said, I'd be very happy to speak with you. As I hung up, James raised his champagne glass toward mine. To Diana Collins, he said, tech mogul, innovative entrepreneur, and the most remarkable woman I've ever known. I clinked my glass against his, finally understanding what it felt like to be truly celebrated for exactly who I was. 20 minutes later, as I was deep in conversation with a group of fellow entrepreneurs about the future of small business technology, Angela appeared at my elbow with an apologetic expression. Ms. Diana, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are some people here who say they're your family. They're asking to speak with you immediately. Through Meridian's floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see Robert and Carol standing on the sidewalk, both looking agitated and out of place among the business crowd flowing into the restaurant. Robert kept checking his expensive watch, while Carol clutched her purse like a shield. They seem quite insistent, Angela continued diplomatically. Should I ask them to wait, or would you prefer to speak with them? James moved closer to me, sensing tension. Do you want me to handle this? No, I said, straightening my shoulders. It's time we had an honest conversation. I walked toward the restaurant entrance, feeling the eyes of my business colleagues on me. Through the glass doors, I could see Robert pacing impatiently, while Carol smoothed her hair and checked her reflection in the window. The moment I stepped outside, Robert began talking. Diana, this is ridiculous. You're embarrassing the entire family by walking out of our anniversary dinner to have some business party. Eesh, business party. I looked back at Meridian, where tech journalists were interviewing entrepreneurs and venture capitalists were discussing innovation trends. Robert, this is a celebration of the biggest professional achievement of my life. The achievement you showed zero interest in during dinner. We showed interest. We asked about your computer work. You dismissed it as playing with computers and changed the subject to Madison's watch collection. Carol stepped forward, her voice taking on the patronizing tone she used when she wanted to appear reasonable. Diana, sweetheart, we had no idea your little tech project had become so significant. If you had explained it properly. Little tech project? I stared at my mother in disbelief. Carol? I tried to share this news with you 3 separate times tonight. Each time you interrupted me to praise Madison's superficial accomplishments. Madison's accomplishments aren't superficial. She's building a meaningful career in marketing. Madison creates social media posts for clients. I refer to her. Her marketing genius consists of recycling strategies she finds on Pinterest. Robert's face reddened with indignation. Diana, that's unnecessarily cruel toward your sister. What's cruel is watching my family redistribute my inheritance to Madison while treating my actual achievements like they don't exist. Inheritance? Carol looked genuinely confused. What inheritance? Grandmother's ring, the one you gave Madison tonight, the one Robert specifically promised to me when I turned 16. Silence stretched between us as restaurant patrons moved past, heading inside for business dinners and networking events. You misunderstood, Robert said finally. I never made any specific promises about your grandmother's ring. You said it should go to the granddaughter who valued family history. You said those exact words while we were looking through grandmother's jewelry box after her funeral. Diana, you're remembering what you wanted to hear, not what actually happened. I felt something cold settle in my chest. This was gaslighting at its most fundamental level, the systematic denial of shared history to avoid accountability for broken promises. I remember perfectly, just like I remember you promising to attend my college graduation and then choosing Madison's sorority formal instead. Just like I remember you promising to visit my first office space and then canceling because Madison needed help moving to her new apartment. Diana, Carol intervened, You're being unfairly dramatic. We've always supported both of our daughters equally. Equally, I pulled out my phone and showed them the Twitter thread about my acquisition that now had over 500 retweets. I've been building this company for 3 years. I've been featured in local business journals, won innovation awards, and created jobs for nearly 50 people. When did either of you ever mention feeling proud of those achievements? Robert looked at my phone screen, his expression shifting as he read the comments from industry leaders praising my work. "We didn't realize the scope of what you were doing," he admitted grudgingly. "Because you never asked. Because every conversation about careers focused exclusively on Madison's entry-level marketing position, while you dismissed my company as a hobby." "We're asking now," Carol said. "We want to understand and celebrate your success." You want to celebrate now that other people are celebrating. You want to claim parental pride now that my achievement is too big to ignore. A black BMW pulled up to the curb Madison's new car, which she was apparently already driving. She climbed out along with Tyler, both looking overdressed for Meridian's business casual atmosphere. "Ah, Diana!" Madison called, hurrying toward us on stilettos that clicked against the sidewalk. "I've been texting you all night. What is happening with this tech thing?" "This tech thing is a $32 million acquisition of the company I've been building for 3 years. Madison's eyes widened as the number registered. 32 million like actual dollars. Like actual dollars that I earned through innovation persistence and building solutions for real market problems. Tyler immediately raised his phone to start recording. "This is incredible content. My followers are going to eat this up." Tyler put the phone down. I said sharply, "This isn't content for your social media audience." "But this is huge. My girlfriend's sister is like a tech millionaire now." "Your girlfriend's sister," I repeated slowly, "has been working 18-hour days for 3 years while you dismissed her as the weird one who plays with computers." Tyler's expression shifted uncomfortably. "I mean, I always thought you were smart and stuff." "No, you didn't. You thought I was strange and antisocial because I didn't prioritize the same things Madison does." Madison stepped between us, her face flushed with emotion I couldn't quite identify. "Diana, why didn't you tell me how big this was? I had no idea your company was worth so much money." "Because every time I tried to discuss my work, you changed the subject to your own projects. Because you've shown zero curiosity about what I actually do for a living." "That's not true. I ask about your computer stuff all the time." "You ask if I'm still doing the computer thing. You've never once asked about my clients, my technology, my business model, or my goals. You treat my career like it's a phase I'm going through before settling down to a normal life." Robert cleared his throat, trying to regain control of the conversation. "Diana, we can discuss family communication patterns later. Right now, we need to return to the anniversary celebration and share this news properly." Share this news properly. I gestured toward Meridian's entrance, where industry colleagues were visible through the windows, engaged in animated discussions about technology and innovation. I am sharing this news properly, with people who understand what I've built and why it matters. "These people aren't your family," Carol protested. "These people have supported my work for years. They've celebrated my small victories and helped me navigate setbacks. They've invested in my vision and cheered for my success. They've acted more like family than my actual family ever has." Madison's face crumpled with what looked like genuine distress. "Diana, that's not fair. We love you." Do you love the person I actually am, or do you love the idea of who you think I should become?" "We love our daughter," Robert said firmly. "But daughters have responsibilities to their families. You can't just abandon your obligations because you achieved some business success." Some business success. I stared at my father, wondering if he truly couldn't comprehend the significance of what I had accomplished, or if minimizing it was a defensive mechanism to avoid confronting his years of neglect. What obligations exactly? The obligation to remain invisible while Madison receives every form of family support and encouragement, the obligation to smile politely while you give away my inheritance and dismiss my achievements. Diana, Madison said suddenly, her voice small and strange, I need to tell you something. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper that looked like it had been worn from handling. I've known about your company for months. I've been following the local business news, and I saw the articles about your software platform. She handed me the paper, a printout of a business journal feature about my company that had run 6 months earlier, titled Local Entrepreneur Revolutionizes Small Business Analytics. You knew. I stared at the article, which included quotes from satisfied clients and predictions about my company's growth potential. I knew you were successful. I knew you were building something important, but I was too ashamed to admit I'd been watching your career progress while pretending not to care. Ashamed of what? Ashamed that my little sister was accomplishing more than I ever would. Ashamed that you were everything I pretended to be, actually successful, actually innovative, actually making a difference. Madison's admission hung in the air like a confession years in the making. So you decided to compete with me instead of supporting me. I decided to protect myself from feeling inadequate by pretending your success didn't matter. Tyler looked between us with growing understanding. Wait, so you knew Diana was successful this whole time, and you let me call her the weird sister? Madison nodded miserably. I let everyone underestimate her because it made me feel better about my own limitations. Robert and Carol stood frozen, apparently realizing that their family dynamic had been built on willful ignorance rather than genuine assessment of their daughters' respective achievements. Diana, Robert said slowly, we owe you an apology, a significant apology. You owe me more than an apology. You owe me 12 years of genuine support and recognition, but that's not something you can give me retroactively. I looked at my family gathered on the sidewalk outside Meridian, finally forced to confront the reality of who I was rather than their comfortable illusion of who they wanted me to be. I'm going back to my celebration now. You're welcome to join me if you can genuinely celebrate my achievement without trying to diminish it or center it around yourselves. But I won't pretend anymore that your approval matters more than my own self-respect. And with that, I turned and walked back into Meridian, leaving my family to decide whether they wanted to finally see me clearly or continue living in their fantasy of family perfection. I had barely reached my table inside Meridian when I heard footsteps behind me. Madison, Robert, and Carol had followed me into the restaurant with Tyler trailing behind, still clutching his phone like a security blanket. The contrast was immediate and stark. My family looked overdressed and uncomfortable among the business-casual entrepreneurs and tech professionals. Madison's emerald cocktail dress and Cartier watch seemed ostentatious next to the understated elegance of people who valued substance over display. James stood as we approached, his expression carefully neutral but protective. The conversation around our table quieted as my business colleagues sensed tension. Diana, Robert began, his voice carrying the authoritative tone he used in real estate negotiations, we need to discuss this situation privately. There's nothing private about it anymore, I replied, gesturing toward the restaurant full of people who were openly discussing my acquisition. This is my professional community. These are people who understand and respect what I've built. Carol looked around nervously at the tech entrepreneurs and venture capitalists who were watching our family drama unfold. Diana, surely we can step outside to have this conversation. We already had that conversation outside. I told you where things stood. Madison shifted uncomfortably in her stilettos, clearly realizing that her usual charm wouldn't work in this environment. She clutched her new purse, a Hermes bag that I suddenly recognized as far more expensive than her marketing salary could afford. Madison, I said, studying her outfit more carefully, where did you get that purse? She looked down at the bag as if seeing it for the first time. It was a gift from Mom and Dad for my birthday last month. A gift that cost more than most people's monthly salary. I thought about the financial stress I had been quietly alleviating for my family over the past 2 years, the anonymous payments I had made to cover Robert's business shortfalls, and Carol's decorating expenses. "Robert," I said quietly, "we need to talk about your real estate business." His face went pale. "Diana, this isn't the appropriate venue. Your company has been operating at a loss for 18 months. The downtown development project fell through, and you've been borrowing against your personal assets to cover operating expenses." Silence stretched across our group. James looked concerned, while my business colleagues discreetly pretended not to listen to what was clearly becoming a family financial revelation. "How do you know about our business challenges?" Carol asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because I've been anonymously covering some of your expenses for the past 2 years. The mortgage payments on your house, Madison's apartment rent, her car insurance, the credit card bills that pile up every month." Madison's face went white. "What are you talking about?" "I set up automatic payments through a shell company so you'd never know the money came from me. I've been subsidizing your lifestyle while you treated me like the family disappointment." Robert sank into an empty chair at our table, his usual confidence completely deflated. "Diana, I don't understand. Why would you help us without telling us?" "Because I loved my family enough to ensure your financial stability, even when you couldn't be bothered to show basic respect for my career." Tyler, who had been recording parts of our conversation, suddenly spoke up. "Wait, so Diana's been paying for Madison's apartment and her car?" "Tyler, put the phone away," Madison snapped, but her voice lacked its usual authority. "This is actually amazing content, though. Like the successful sister secretly supporting the family that ignores her success, my followers would eat this story up." "Your followers?" James stepped forward, his protective instincts clearly activated. "Tyler, this is Diana's private family situation, not content for your social media platform." "But it's such a great redemption narrative. The overlooked daughter becomes successful and saves her family." "It's not a redemption narrative," I interrupted coldly. "It's a story about enabling dysfunctional family dynamics by rewarding people who don't appreciate what they have." I pulled out my phone and opened the banking app for my company's accounts. As of tonight, all anonymous financial support ends. No more mortgage payments, no more rent subsidies, no more credit card assistance. "Diana," Carol gasped, "you can't just cut off our support without warning." "I can and I will. You've been receiving support for 2 years without even knowing it existed. You'll figure out how to manage without it, just like you should have been doing all along." Robert looked around the restaurant full of successful entrepreneurs and seemed to finally understand the caliber of person he had been dismissing for years. "Diana, I made a terrible mistake. We all did. Your achievements are extraordinary and we failed to recognize or support them." "You didn't just fail to recognize them. You actively dismissed them. You gave my inheritance to Madison while I was bankrolling your family's lifestyle. You celebrated her $10,000 watch while ignoring my $32 million acquisition." Madison suddenly stood up, her face flushed with emotion I had never seen from her before. "Diana, stop, just stop." The restaurant conversations around us quieted as Madison raised her voice. "You want to know the truth? I've known about your success for months. I've known you were brilliant and innovative and building something important. But I couldn't admit it because I was terrified of what that meant about me." She pulled out the business article again, waving it in the air. "I've been carrying this around for 6 months, reading about your achievements and feeling like a complete fraud." "Madison," Robert started, but she continued. "No, Dad, let me finish. Diana's been everything you and Mom always claimed to want in a daughter. She's successful, independent, innovative, and generous. She's been secretly taking care of all of us while we treated her like she was the family failure." Tyler lowered his phone, apparently realizing that this wasn't the kind of content that would enhance his social media presence. "I've been living in an apartment I couldn't afford, driving a car I didn't earn, wearing jewelry bought with money I didn't know was coming from my sister's company. And instead of being grateful, I've been competing with her and dismissing her achievements because I was jealous. Madison pulled off her grandmother's ring and held it out toward me. This belongs to you. It always belonged to you. Grandmother would have wanted the entrepreneur to have it, not the marketing coordinator who can't even afford her own rent. I stared at the sapphire ring that had been in our family for 3 generations. Madison, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Because I've been living a lie and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of pretending to be successful while my sister actually is successful. I'm tired of accepting gifts I haven't earned while criticizing the person who's been making those gifts possible. Carol looked around the restaurant with dawning horror, realizing that dozens of successful professionals had just witnessed her family's complete dysfunction. Diana, what can we do to make this right? She asked quietly. You can start by acknowledging reality instead of the fantasy version of our family that you've been maintaining. You can stop treating Madison like she's more valuable than me just because she fits your image of traditional femininity. We never meant to make you feel less valuable, Robert protested. You didn't make me feel less valuable. You made me less visible. There's a difference. James moved closer to me, offering silent support as my family struggled to process the implications of their years of favoritism and neglect. Diana, Madison said, still holding out the ring. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know that everything I've accomplished in marketing came from watching and copying your business strategies. You've been my role model even when I was too proud to admit it. I looked at my sister, really looked at her for the first time in years. Underneath the designer clothes and perfect makeup, I saw someone who had been as trapped by our family's expectations as I had been by their dismissal. Madison, you're talented in your own right. You don't need to compete with me or copy my methods. You just need to stop letting other people define your worth. Tyler shifted uncomfortably, clearly recognizing that he had been one of the people defining Madison's worth based on her appearance and social status rather than her capabilities. Maybe, Madison said slowly, I could actually work for your company, learn how to build something meaningful instead of just managing social media accounts. Maybe you could, I agreed. But it would mean giving up the lifestyle our parents have been funding and learning to earn your own success. I'm ready for that. I'm ready to stop being the family disappointment disguised as the family favorite. Robert stood up slowly, extending his hand toward James. I owe you an apology as well. I should have recognized that any business partner of Diana's would be an exceptional person. James shook his hand cautiously. Diana's success speaks for itself, sir. I'm just grateful to be part of her journey. As am I, Robert said, and for the first time all evening, I believed he might actually mean it. Carol reached for my hand, her eyes filled with tears I had never seen before. Diana, can you forgive us? Can you give us another chance to be the family you deserved all along? I looked around Meridian at the community of innovators and entrepreneurs who had welcomed me, supported me, and celebrated my achievements without reservation. Then I looked at my biological family, finally stripped of their illusions and forced to see me clearly. I can give you a chance to build something honest, I said, but it has to be based on who we actually are, not who you want us to be. Madison slipped the sapphire ring onto my finger where it belonged, where it had always belonged. To honest relationships, she said, raising Tyler's abandoned champagne glass. To honest relationships, I agreed. And for the first time in 28 years, I felt like I might actually have a family worth celebrating. 6 months later, I stood in the floor-to-ceiling windows of my new corporate headquarters, looking down at the bustling street below, where small business owners hurried to meetings that might change their lives. Carol had designed the office space herself, finally understanding that my work deserved an environment that reflected its significance and impact. The headquarters occupied the top 3 floors of a renovated downtown building with open collaboration spaces, private development labs, and a conference room where we hosted monthly workshops for local entrepreneurs. The design balanced cutting-edge technology with warm, accessible spaces that welcomed clients who might feel intimidated by traditional corporate environments. Diana, the Forbes photographer, is here for your feature shoot, called Sarah, who had transitioned from family friend to my chief operating officer after proving herself invaluable during the post-acquisition transition period. 6 months ago, Sarah had witnessed my family's dysfunction at the anniversary dinner. Today, she managed operations for a company that had grown from 47 employees to over 100 with expansion plans that would double our size within the year. "Send her up to the executive conference room," I replied, adjusting the collar of my navy blazer. The Forbes feature would be my third major media appearance since the acquisition, but I still felt a flutter of nervous excitement before interviews. The acquisition money had allowed me to pursue ventures I had only dreamed about during the bootstrap years. We had launched an entrepreneur mentorship program, established a scholarship fund for women in technology, and created an innovation lab that provided free consulting services to minority-owned small businesses. But the most significant change wasn't professional, it was personal. Madison appeared in my office doorway, carrying a tablet and wearing a crisp white shirt with dark jeans, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Gone were the designer dresses and expensive accessories that had once defined her image. In their place was the confidence of someone who had earned her position through competence rather than connections. "The Peterson Industries presentation is ready for your review," she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "I incorporated the advanced analytics features we discussed, and I think they'll be impressed by the projected efficiency gains." Madison had started as a junior marketing coordinator in my company, accepting a salary that was 60% lower than what our parents had been supplementing. For the first 3 months, she had struggled to adjust to a work environment that valued substance over style, results over relationships. But she had persevered, learning our technology platform, understanding our client needs, and developing genuine expertise in small business marketing analytics. Her natural people skills, combined with newly acquired technical knowledge, made her one of our most effective client relationship managers. "How did the morning client call go?" I asked, reviewing her presentation slides. "Beautifully. The restaurant chain loved the customer retention analysis we provided. They want to expand our services to all 15 locations." "That's a significant account expansion. Well done." Madison smiled, not the practiced pageant smile of her former life, but the genuine satisfaction of someone who had contributed meaningfully to a successful outcome. "Diana, I want to thank you again for giving me this opportunity. I know I didn't deserve it after how I treated you." "You've earned your place here, Madison. Every promotion, every client success, every bit of recognition you've received came from your own work." It was true. Madison had transformed from a superficial marketing coordinator who relied on family connections into a knowledgeable professional who understood both the technical and human sides of business development. Her clients trusted her recommendations because she had invested the time to understand their challenges and our solutions. "Speaking of recognition," Madison said, grinning, "Tyler called this morning. He wanted to know if I could get him a meeting with you about social media consulting for your company." Tyler, Madison's former boyfriend, who had spent the evening of my acquisition trying to turn my family drama into content for his social media followers. They had broken up 2 weeks after the anniversary dinner confrontation, once Madison realized that Tyler valued her primarily as material for his online persona. "What did you tell him?" "I told him that our social media strategy focuses on authentic thought leadership rather than manufactured engagement. I don't think he understood what I meant." We both laughed, remembering Tyler's confusion whenever conversations moved beyond superficial topics. "Speaking of social media," I said, "the Business Journal wants to feature you in their Young Professionals to Watch series. They're interested in your transition from traditional marketing to tech-enabled business development." Madison's eyes widened with surprise and pleasure. "Really? They want to interview me about my work?" "Your actual work. your genuine expertise, your real contributions to client success. For Madison, this represented validation she had never experienced before, recognition based on competence rather than appearance, achievement rather than charm. "Diana," she said quietly, "I want you to know that working here has taught me what real success feels like. It's so different from the fake success I was living before." A knock on my office door interrupted our conversation. James appeared carrying 2 coffee cups and wearing the pleased expression that usually meant he had good news to share. "The final contract signatures just came through," he announced. "We officially close on the San Francisco office expansion next week." San Francisco. Our West Coast expansion represented everything I had dreamed about during the early days of building my company. A team of 15 engineers and business development specialists would be establishing our presence in the heart of the tech industry, serving clients who had previously been beyond our reach. "That calls for a celebration," Madison said, standing to leave. "I'll let you two discuss the details." As Madison left my office, James set down the coffee cups and moved around my desk to where I sat. 6 months earlier, his confession of love had come at the perfect moment, just as I was learning to value myself independent of my family's approval. Our relationship had developed naturally from business partnership to romantic partnership, built on mutual respect and shared vision. "How are you feeling about the expansion?" he asked, perching on the edge of my desk. Excited, nervous, grateful. I looked around my office, decorated with framed photos of client success stories and industry recognition awards. Sometimes I still can't believe how much has changed since that anniversary dinner. "Your family has changed too." It was true. Robert had restructured his real estate business with strategic consulting from my company, focusing on sustainable development projects rather than high-risk speculation. Without the financial stress that had been secretly subsidized by my anonymous payments, he had been forced to build a more stable business model. Carol had thrown herself into interior design work with renewed purpose, specializing in office spaces for technology companies and small businesses. She had discovered genuine passion for creating environments that supported productivity and innovation work that connected her to my professional world in meaningful ways. "Are you ready for dinner with your parents tonight?" James asked. Tonight was our monthly family dinner, a new tradition that had replaced the superficial social gatherings of the past. These dinners took place at my apartment, where conversations focused on authentic updates about our respective work and personal growth rather than performative displays of success. "I think so. Robert wants to update me on his downtown development project, and Carol has some design concepts for the new mentorship center. And how do you feel about that? Like I finally have parents who see me clearly instead of seeing who they wish I was." The therapy sessions Sarah had mediated during those first difficult months had been essential to rebuilding our family relationships. Professional counseling had helped my parents understand how their favoritism had damaged both daughters, while teaching Madison and me to communicate honestly about years of resentment and misunderstanding. "Diana," James said, reaching for my hand, "I have something I want to ask you." He slid off my desk and, to my complete surprise, knelt down on one knee while pulling a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. "James!" "Diana Collins, you are the most brilliant, innovative, and remarkable woman I have ever known. You've built something extraordinary with this company, but more importantly, you've shown me what it means to create value in the world while never compromising your integrity." I stared at the ring box, my heart racing with excitement and joy. "Will you marry me and let me spend the rest of my life supporting your dreams and building new ones together?" He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring with a vintage setting that perfectly complemented my grandmother's sapphire ring, which I wore every day as a reminder of the family legacy I was continuing through entrepreneurship. "Yes!" I said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, absolutely yes!" As James slipped the engagement ring onto my finger, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment, A year ago, I had stood invisible at my family's anniversary celebration, clutching news of my professional success while feeling completely unrecognized and undervalued. Today, I was engaged to a man who celebrated my achievements, surrounded by colleagues who respected my work, leading a company that created meaningful value for thousands of small businesses, and connected to a family that finally saw me clearly. The Forbes photographer knocked on my door ready to capture images for the feature story about women entrepreneurs who were changing the landscape of American business. "Ms. Collins, are you ready for your photo shoot?" I looked at James, then at Madison, who had returned with champagne to celebrate our engagement news, then at my grandmother's ring alongside my new engagement ring. "I'm ready," I said, and for the first time in my life, I truly was. Call to action. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family while working toward your dreams? How do you find the courage to demand the respect you deserve while still maintaining relationships with people you love? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear that their worth isn't determined by other people's recognition. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about finding your voice, building authentic success, and creating the life you actually want. Remember, you don't need anyone's permission to be extraordinary. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to accept treatment that makes you feel invisible. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it inspires you to claim the recognition you deserve in your own life.